Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Today we have Rob Spencer on from Venture the Wild, and the name tells everything here. He delivers a truly wild story, so stay tuned for that. Before we get into the interview, though, there's a few things I want to talk about. The first is AMSOIL. AMSOIL and I are working together because we think that you have a ton of potential. This podcast exists to help you find that potential, unlock it, and release it on the motorsports industry. And we've been with us for almost a year now, and there was a great start to that. And actually, now I want to tell you about AMSOIL's great start. So this story goes way back in time. Well, I guess it's not that far back in time, but it's all relative, right? Back in the 1960s, there was a jet fighter. His name was Al Amatuzio, and he was the founder of AMSOIL. He basically said, look, why don't we use synthetic oil in car engines? So, he was a jet fighter pilot. He was used to using that type of, higher level engine protectant in the jet engines. And he's like, it's just not out there for the standard automobile. So he decided to just make it and put it out there. So AMSOIL was officially formed in 1972 as a result. It was the world's first synthetic motor oil for automobiles. So pretty good story there. Now, I need to tell you a few other things here. The next is that I would love it if you headed over to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever you want to call it, and left a rating and review. That would be phenomenal. And subscribe. That doesn't matter what type of podcast player you use. The subscribe button works for all of them. And I need to shout out some of our other partners. This episode here is brought to you by SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metabonding technology. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship and website creation. Bold Racing, they're a family race team and GSP XDV axle specialist. Crash Addict Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, GSP XTV, and High Octane Coffee. Without further ado, let's hop in. Today I have got a special guest on. This is Rob Spencer of Venture the Wild. So Rob, there's so many things that I could botch in this intro, so I'm just going to hand it over to you. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, you already kind of introduced me. My name is Rob, and I run a little blog called VentureTheWild.com, and it's basically I would call it an adventure website, right? It's primarily focused around Jeeps and kind of the maybe an adventure bike kind of thing. Any motor that gets us to the adventure, that's kind of what we center it around. But the big picture is the adventure, of course. And I've been doing that for about 4 years.
Awesome.
And it's going pretty well. I started it. Shoot. It was like I said, it was about 4 years back, and just kind of as a little project. Honestly, I opened my garage one day, and I saw it was really messy, and I just thought to myself, there is got to be something that I could do with this space better than storing my garbage that I never see again, right? So I built out a little studio. I started a website called CoolGuyStuff.tv.
Oh, okay. Okay.
On that site, we covered MMA, we covered kind of consumer tech, and a little bit of the Jeep and outdoor stuff.
Okay.
As that grew, my MMA section and my Jeep section really took off.
Yeah.
So I had to make some decisions. I cut my tech out, and then eventually I cut my MMA out, and it's full-time Jeep life and adventure for me now. So that's where we're at today.
So that is already in itself a cool story, especially because a lot of people that listen to the show have some form of content creation that they do. It's maybe a YouTube channel or social media or their own little blog posts or their own racing blog. Everybody's got something. And it's so interesting that you're able to pinpoint the thing that made yours kind of stand out, the thing that made that was actually pretty popular, and then just focus in and narrow in on that, kind of niche down. That's pretty cool stuff. How did you know? I mean, I'm getting right into the content here. How did you know, like, that the Jeep stuff was taking off?
So people love Jeeps, right?
Yeah.
I've been a Jeep guy since I bought my first Jeep in 1993.
Okay.
And I've been a Jeep guy ever since. And it's the type of vehicle where you'll pull up to the grocery store, park right next to a Ferrari, and the guy that gets out and goes to get in his Ferrari will be there looking at your Jeep, thinking, "Man, that's a cool vehicle," right?
Yeah.
So why does that happen? So what Jeep has done, and again, these are my opinions, right? I mean, so what Jeep has done, they've managed to carve out this calling with their brand. Their branding is so good. They managed to reach inside of people and tag a Jeep with whatever their perception is of adventure, right? Mm-hmm. And of freedom. So that's kind of, I know what Jeep and the brand and the vehicle has always done for my life, with fun and stuff like that. And I saw kind of what it does for people. And from there, it's just kind of as things grew with content, I just kind of picked a passion more than I did anything else,
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. That's good. I like it.
The content's way more fun as well.
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty incredible. I haven't done actually many shows on here focused on the Jeep community. Brad from Trail Recon came on.
Sure.
And, we talk a lot about that because it is this crazy, crazy community. I actually, my history is I had an XJ back in 2000. Let me see if I can get these days right. 2003 to 2004 or 2002 to it was a couple years back then. And I had that, and I was in high school at the time, and I loved it. Got into an accident with it, because apparently you're supposed to stay awake while you're driving. Big deal, right? Either way, it wasn't that bad. Nobody got hurt, but it just was never right. And I just was obsessed with getting a truck for whatever reason. So I got rid of that thing. And I was in the F-150 world for like 14 years. And I just got back in the Jeep world last year. And I was like, man, why did I ever leave? Like, this is so much fun. And now I got the the Wrangler, so I got the whole Freedom Top type thing, like I can really enjoy it. But back then I did not know the cult type following that the Jeep community has, and it's only gotten stronger, right? I mean, like you said, Jeep has done a fantastic job with influencers out there and with their branding, and just like, I mean, you can price out a Jeep against, a full size heavy duty pickup truck with a diesel. Like, it's just like, how does this happen?
Yeah, right.
But
pretty easily you can get there.
Yeah.
And you're still only pushing 17 miles to the gallon if you're lucky.
Right. I mean, when I actually have two right now. So if anybody's listening, you want to buy a 2015 a Wrangler, let me know, because I love Jeeps, but two is too many for me. But
what do you have? You have are they both 4-doors?
Yeah. I've got a 2015 Unlimited with a 3.5-inch metal cloak lift, and it's got a 1-inch body lift, and then just a bunch of other cool armor and 35s, and it's just a cool looking vehicle. But I actually kind of got a little impulsive, but I bought a 2019 Rubicon Unlimited, and it's got the little 2-liter. Turbo in it.
Oh yeah, that's turning out to be a great little motor.
It is so much fun. It's the weirdest thing to drive, but it's like, I don't know, it's just so nice. But either way, my 2015, like, it's so super cool. But I mean, gas mileage, you just try not to pay attention to that. You know what I mean? You just run it.
The best thing I could tell you to do is regear, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody wants any type of hope of getting any type of decent gas mileage, just make sure you regear. That's
exactly
give you something right. At least.
Yeah, and that's what this new one. It's got, it's a Rubicon, so it's just stock gears is 410s. My last one had 373s. But something happened when the Jeep world, like with these new JLs, that they just went crazy with gadgets and technology. Like, I mean, they jumped.
They're nice rides.
Yeah, it's a little bit wild. I'm riding this thing like, this is actually, I'm not sure if I'm in a Jeep anymore. Like, it's really, it's almost too nice at times. But either way, it's pretty cool what they've done with the whole brand. And I like how you were able to notice that, right? How you were able to say, look, this is a pretty popular segment, and you're able to focus in on that. I think that's important. I think it's actually very important to notice that with whatever type of content you're trying to do. If you get a little bit too broad, it can get confusing for people. Actually, with my show is pretty niche. It's motorsports sponsorship, but
yep.
I have people on here like yourself, from the Jeep off-road community. I've got desert racers that come on. I've got GNCC racers. I've got supercross racers. I got jet ski racers, NHRA, backcountry snowmobilers, like NASCAR. All these different people come on. I think sometimes it confuses a certain, especially on social media. I know it confuses people on social media because they're like when I post a UTV, and then the next day it's like, a Top Fuel dragster. They're like
what? They're like, what?
What is this thing? But yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. But
with any small business, diversity kills if you try to do it too early, right?
Yeah.
So, all these little blogs and these podcasts and stuff, they're little small businesses. And we need to, they're this fun, great lifestyle for sure. But if you want to make that transition from pleasure to profession, then you need to understand the way small business works as well, and that's ultimately what's going to make or break you when it comes to trying to succeed.
Yeah, and that message is in direct alignment with what we talk about in the show with regards to people setting up their racing programs too. Treat it like a business. It is a business. In most cases, I recommend people formally document it with whatever way their state or country allows it, but formally document it as a business. Do your taxes as a business, do the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do. A lot of people take advantage of that. But yeah, you got to have that mindset. It's exactly right. The whole thing is a business, whether it's a little podcast like this podcast. I have it set up, full gamut. I got a CPA. I've got full registration. I run it like a business. I've got my own P&L. I've got all my metrics.
There you
go. That's what a lot of these top racers and a lot of these top content creators, they're doing the same thing.
I came out of the small business world, before I started this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a small business actually an MMA gym for a little over 18 years before I sold it and retired. And and that is small business is brutal to make it, but small business in that genre it's crazy. So you really have to understand how to keep a budget small, how to make things, get the most out of your bucket, and you have to understand branding, and if you could do that, and you could do what you love consistent enough for long enough, you'll make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. And, we've kind of touched on the surface of this too, but I want to know a little bit more about, how did you really get into this? Why did you end up starting Venture the Wild? I mean, what really got you into motorsports in general? So maybe kind of go a little bit deeper now into your journey.
Okay, so this is actually a pretty wild story. I shared a little bit. I haven't shared it a whole lot.
Yeah, we've just got touches of it now.
Back in the early 90s, I was in a car accident.
Okay.
And a diabetic guy, he was going from his parents' home to his home, probably 50 miles away-ish, and he wasn't feeling well when he left, and he thought he could make it anyways, right? Mm-hmm. So he's trucking down the freeway. And somehow he slipped into a diabetic coma and banked off of the center divider and veered from the fast lane of the freeway all the way up the off ramp without hitting a single thing. And he's approximately 65 miles an hour. He found me at the top of the off ramp and T-boned me.
Yeah.
And I was in my first Jeep, and he hit me hard right around the rear axle area. So my Jeep went instantly. He basically just went right under me at those speeds, launched me in the air, basically the Jeep came down. My head was in between the roll bar and the street, and it really did a lot of damage to me. Mm-hmm. So we could fast forward weeks and weeks and weeks of recovery, you know. And one thing that happened in that accident, besides physically, it gave me a TBI, which is a traumatic brain injury. Mm. And that brain injury was basically the neurological tracks. This is a little geeking out probably for most people, but the neurological tracks that connect your emotional brain and your logical brain, mine were broken. Mm. They're all destroyed in that. And as well as it took my memory from birth to that accident.
Oh, really?
So, and it never came back.
Really?
So, with that being said, you know, I'm in my early 20s. I actually woke up married.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, which is a trip in itself. But my family all lived back east, so I seriously, maybe I've seen my brothers 4 or 5 times in my life. Right. My parents have passed away at this point. I didn't really, at their senior stage in life, I'd never tell them this, you know. Mm-hmm. They live all the way on the East Coast, so I figured, you know, I'll visit them, I'll fake it kind of thing. There's no need to burden them, lay that on their last stage of life doorstep, you know. It sounds very selfish to me. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I could not go back to my job. I was working in the harbor as an auditor, basically, for like cars that came in overseas, and, you know, they got prepped and shipped off and all that. And I couldn't do it. I tried to do it. It just wasn't working. I didn't know what to, you know, everything was gone. I could tell you 2 + 2 = 4. I could not show you how to get 4 from 2 + 2, right? I couldn't give you the equation. Yeah. I could speak, but I could barely write. I barely read. You know, I had to figure these things out along the way. So, basically what I could do is I could fight. Mm-hmm. I had my muscle memory. And before the accident, I was into martial arts and stuff. And, anyway, so maybe I could not remember the curriculum, but I still had the skill set of the physical mechanics, you know, not necessarily in a curriculum level, but in a fighting level. So I became a fighter, and that opened a gym, first gym back in probably mid 90s, and had a couple gyms along the way. I stayed in my original one my entire time though, and fast forward 18 years, sold it, retired, and was bored, right? Mm-hmm. And really, maybe I was in my early 40s, so I probably called it too early. So that's when I said I opened a garage, this old mess, and I just kind of got into it, right?
That's it.
But ultimately, what led me to the Jeep life and the adventure content was the idea on what nature did for my own healing. Mm-hmm. I believe that I was a very calloused guy, you know. I think about this. I don't know another single individual in a planet of billions like me. And I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but I don't know.
Right.
You know, I don't have childhood experiences. I don't have relationships with friends and any of that stuff. I seriously, I was one guy that woke up in this very chaotic world and had to make a run at it. You know, and where a lot of people may find that overwhelming and not be able to succeed in it, there was 2 defining lessons that stuck with me very early on. And literally, that was a pivotal point in my life. And I realized that I'll just tell you the story. I'm sitting on my couch, and we probably all have done this at some point. I'm sitting on my couch. My jaw's wired shut it was shattered, and it was wired shut for a long time. Anyways, so I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, and the remote control is out of arm reach. I think I will just take this pillow, I'll drop it on the remote, and I'll pull it to myself. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm sure we've all done stuff like that. Toss the pillow on the remote, knock over my drink. Now I got this mess to clean up. I still don't have the remote. And I realize while I'm cleaning this up that it's very apparent to me that the easy way out often becomes more difficult than ever, right? Mm-hmm. So we put so much effort and energy into trying to take the easy way out. We could have just done the right thing the first time and been successful, and it would have been a lot easier for us, right? So that's one lesson. The other lesson was nothing, and this is kind of a joke more than anything else, but nothing ever falls to the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is there are universal truths out there. Those universal truths apply way beyond all of our realities, right? They're absolute. So our reality is interpretation of actuality. And actuality is universal truth. So I knew that I can bank on gravity. I knew that I can bank on leverage. I knew that whatever my chaotic mind was telling me at the time, if it didn't line up with universal truth, then I can separate myself from reality and I go with universal truth anyways. And early on in my business career, as well as fighting and martial arts and all other stuff, using that model really allowed me to become successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward again to the same concepts, right? Now gym is gone. We're talking website. We're talking how are we gonna make this something, right? So applying those same principles is basically I keep it simple, and I bank on absolute truth, because just like leverage is real, so are mental universal truths. So are spiritual universal truths. They may not be as tangible as leverage, but they are equally and 100% absolute as anything. So relying on that kind of stuff is how I do everything. Like when it comes to building the business, that's how I do it. But backing up and getting back into the idea on what nature has done for me is through that accident, I became very calloused, very emotionally detached, very unsympathetic to the world and to people and all this other stuff, right? So, but by being in nature, it allowed me to see a bigger picture. One, I don't believe you can be in creation and not, at some level, come to terms with the creator of it, right? Mm-hmm. But other than that, when you see the trees and the way they exist, and you see the way the animals interact, and you see the way little bugs and rodents, all the way up to the bigger food chain animals, or everything just exists, and it exists in a system that is. I'm totally geeking out. I'm totally.
This is good stuff, man.
So it exists in a system of absolute. I cannot tell you a single time anybody has been attacked by a bear in nature because the bear looked at that guy and said, "Oh, he's wearing nice clothes. Mm-hmm. I bet he's got money in his pocket. I'm going to mug him and rob him."
Right.
Bears are just being bears. There's no premeditation in that.
Right.
And only the human race has that.
Yeah.
We are the only beings, the only life that have that choice. A bear is a bear, a lion is a lion, a fish is a fish, and a fish will just do what that fish does. But we have the ability to choose that, right? So there's a couple things that come along with that. One, it puts it in perspective when you're in nature. It gives you a sense of healing. It gives you a sense of greater responsibility. It gives you a sense of existence, of purpose. And I wanted to share that same finding that I found for my own life with as many people as I could.
Yeah,
right?
That's good stuff.
So we live in a world where marriage is the highest divorce rates ever, suicide is the highest rates ever, alcoholism, drug abuse, all the highest rates ever. But we're the furthest along we've ever been in science. We have great tech. We have all of these great things. Then why it doesn't make sense? Then why is it that all of these things don't equal joy or happiness or success, right? Mm-hmm. So we live in this world. So, but when we get in nature, we're a part of it. We become part of the cycle, and it's just an experience that if you've never done it, it's hard to explain. but I love it. That's why I love it, and that's why I try to share it with people.
No, that's good stuff. And, I'll give you a little plug here, too. I know you had written at least one article about this, too, because I'd gone through Reddit, but it was in January of this year. A little outdoor therapy can change a man. You went into some of your story there, too. So if people want to dive in a little bit deeper there, you've got a lot of articles on here on your site, which is venturethewild.com. Yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah, I love it. I love that, there's a purpose behind these things. I feel like behind every, good content creator or, every successful racer, every, person who has some level of success in life, however they define it, there's a strong purpose behind it. I actually encourage people on the show a lot is if you don't know that yet, if you haven't discovered your own purpose, take some time and figure it out. Because that is going to be a game changer for you.
Absolutely.
Well, in a minute here, we're going to transition into the next heat, but I would like to take a minute to talk about some of your current partners that you work with to make Venture the Wild, something that allows you to do this as part of your this is your job. This is what you do. So let's talk about your partners.
This is what I do. Well, I'll tell you this. I early on, I believe that lifestyle content is what is. There's a reason why everybody wants to go buy a four-door Impala after they wrap up their season of their favorite cop show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they've looked at it and they've identified it and they felt it this whole season without even realizing it, right? So that lifestyle content is what is very desirable to brands. It's the ability to sell without selling. So with that being said, the content that I create has allowed me to work with really great companies like TerraFlex Suspensions. They're monsters in the industry, the Jeep world for sure. And it's a company full of awesome people that love this Jeep stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work with one of my newest guys is this father-son business, and they're not really that small, but they're called Runaway Campers. They're out of Florida.
I saw that. Yep.
And there you go. And they have a cool family and a cool business and a great product. And I like to align myself with the people behind the brands that I work with. But I've worked with KC Highlights. They are one of my favorites, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I work with Columbia River on a lot of the, gear, like kind of survival gear, knives, that kind of thing. There's honestly, there's a pretty long list that I work with, but they're different tiers of sponsors, right?
Yep.
So when you have something like this, you have a couple level of sponsorships. You have these things where you get a paycheck, and you literally create content for these guys, and you can do it on your they want the content, so as many of the outlets that they can get their content on, the better it is, right? So I like to push my content out through all kinds of stuff. Venture the Wild is just my site, but you'll see my stuff there in a lot of places, and you won't necessarily know it's my stuff because I'm creating it for a sponsor. But you have the paid sponsor, which is what makes it all happen, right?
Yep.
And they're probably the ones you want to give the most attention to, and make sure you're giving them that professional love that they deserve for supporting you. And then you have the guys that are like a product for content, right? So if somebody has a cool product and you are into it, I'll reach out and I'll say, hey, you know what? Honestly, I love this product. I think it's super cool. I think my audience would love it. Why don't you ship me something out and I'll do my thing with it, and just because I dig it, And then the other are the guys where this is kind of like, I believe that this is a necessity as well to make it. The hole you give through in life is the same hole you receive through, so to speak. So they're the guys that they're good, man. They're good people, and they just they're just starting out, and they just they need a break and they need some love. And it's up to us as people that were once there to give them that love and to show them, you know, so to help them get their product or their brand and that kind of stuff out. In my business, again, fortunate enough to never have to chase a sponsor. I think the type of content that I do is attractive to people, and it's all good. It's healthy, positive content. It's G-rated from front to back. It's just, and it tells a story, right? So content creators are basically storytellers on whatever venue that you're in. So where I was going with that is that, so like I was fortunate, you know, I was very fortunate, and from day one to have a great company like TerraFlex believe in me before anybody else, you know. So I will always be loyal to those guys.
Yep.
And but that being said, when it comes to sponsorship and when it comes to being a content creator working with a sponsor, if you don't believe it, don't do it.
Yep.
Because if you're just faking it, that will be evident. It's a weird thing out there, but that could be that energy is picked up on. So the quickest way to kill yourself is to run out and try to grab as much stuff you can and show it off to people on your blog or because that it just doesn't work. You know, you have to be a believer. You have to be authentic, you know, so I try to keep it authentic with anybody I work with. If I don't support the company, if I don't support the people behind the company, the product could be the greatest or the worst thing in the world. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not interested. But with the first two being covered, if it's a product I can get behind, if it's a product that I would sell, then I will definitely work with that sponsor.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really solid advice. And you had said something a little bit earlier too, you know, that you align with the people behind the business, and I think that's very, very critical. I mean, honestly, I've told people before, like, I even start there. I mean, for what I do in this show and the companies that end up connecting with me, the whole business is important, but that person, like that connection is very critical for me. And it's the same for them. So yeah, I can't tell you how important that is. And people know, like, there's people who listen to this show right now that they can think of, you know, if they have 5 or 6 sponsors, that maybe there is one of them that they're like, oh, I don't feel that same connection with that sponsor. Right. Well, maybe it might be mutual, and maybe it's time to move on. I feel like it's important to have that connection. One, just because it's way more fun. And two, I think it creates a more authentic experience for whoever you're trying to tell the story to, whether it's, you know, someone in the stands or someone on the other end of you know, a smartphone.
You know, it's also important to understand that you can't try to make a buck everywhere a buck is available to be made, right? That is the kiss of death. It's a slow. Think about what you're doing, right? It's a great opportunity for you to have this awesome lifestyle and stuff. So if you just kind of stick to being you, stick to what the sponsors that wanted to work with you, why they wanted to work with you to begin with, and not try to, like, you know, have an opportunity to sell every time you come around to working with a new sponsor or something like that. You know, I don't sell anything really, you know. That's my personal choice. That's not everybody's. I'm not saying I'll never do that, because there's nothing wrong with that. Just me personally right now in my life with the sponsors that I work with. Look, my job is to authentically tell a story about how great this thing is to me, how great this brand is to me, you know, and that in itself is what takes care of the bills, so to speak. And if you need more, then you need to adjust your plan, and you need to look at what you're doing and tweak it to make sure it works. But the last thing you need to do is start selling every time you turn around, because your audience is going to say, this guy's trying to sell me another product.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, that's good stuff. And actually, Speaking of sponsorship and the tactics and strategies that come along with it, we're actually going to take a break here for a second, thank the sponsors for this podcast, and we'll come back and dive into those details. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. Family race team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles. And if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with topthepodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you gotta check out topthepodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistal of topthepodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to topthepodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible.
Hey guys, George Hamill here to talk about SolderWeld's new off-road repair kit. If you're a racer of any type or an off-road enthusiast like myself, you're going to want to take a close look at this product that bonds metal on the spot. SolderWeld has combined some of their most elite products into one small kit that fits perfectly under your seat or strapped to a roll cage and allows you to make some insane fixes anywhere you go. How many of us have been in a race or out on the trail and got a rock chip in a radiator or brake line? We have seen a top-tier desert race team at the 2019 Mint 400 taken out by a simple rock to the radiator. If they had an off-road repair kit on board, they could have been back up and running in just minutes. The kit includes everything you need to work on dirty aluminum, stainless steel, copper, and many other metals. SolderWeld's cutting-edge technology allows you to make these fixes with extremely low heat and incredibly high tensile strength, leaving you a lasting fix every time. Don't be that guy broke down on the side of the trail. Get your off-road repair kit today, and your friends will thank you.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We are in Heat 2, and quite honestly, we've already started covering some of the stuff that we wanted to hit in this section of the show, but we're going to dive in a little deeper. One of the things that, Rob, that you did that you might not have known is you hit tugging on my heartstrings. I love the mindset conversations. I can get fully lost in those conversations, like no problem. And I tend to do that in this show. But I do also like to get into some of those details, like, to help the people, especially from a content creation standpoint, help them get a little bit better grasp of their programs. I have been hammering content creation, over the past probably 20 episodes. I've done multiple focus episodes just on content creation. And guess what? We're talking about it again today. And one of the things that I remember it caught my attention from your site, you've got I think you specifically said #1 Jeep blog, right? Like that's right. Huge, right? And we know now that just based off of all the stuff you're doing, you're out there, you're working with a lot of partners, you got a lot going on, which means you figured a few things out when it comes to blogging and content creation. So I want to talk about some of that. Like from your standpoint, what do you think are those critical elements that people can think about if they're creating similar types of content?
So when it comes to content creation, lifestyle is key, right? Mm-hmm. And that term actually gets thrown around a lot. And when it comes to content creation, and who really knows what it means, right? Well, what it really means is that when your content brings people to the point of either engaging in your lifestyle or engaging in a lifestyle for themselves that moves them towards the sponsor, right? So lifestyle content for me is #1. It's about healthy living. It's about positive thinking. It's about surrounding yourself with goodness in a world full of garbage. It's, and that's what my lifestyle content is, right? For me, it's about nature. It's about the Jeep and outdoors and, stuff like that. So, for lifestyle sake, living that lifestyle is what allows me to produce that lifestyle content, right? So stage 1 is like lifestyle content. Stage 2, though, is to get to that lifestyle content. Guess what? You got to live the lifestyle.
Right.
You can't fake it.
Right.
I can't. For me to pick up some power tools and try to do a website on building houses would be ridiculous.
Right.
Right. I wouldn't even get out of the starting blocks.
Yeah.
So you have to live the lifestyle because along with that comes the authenticity of who you are and what you do with the people that are interested in the content that you're creating. So if I'm not living, if I'm saying all these great things but I'm not living them, people will know. People know that. People feel that. People know when something's BS. Mm-hmm. So, maybe you could trick them for a while, but eventually you're going to run out of tricks. So it's important to live the lifestyle that you want to represent, right?
Yeah, that's like step 1, right? Before you even pick up a pad of paper or, whatever,
figure it out,
a smartphone. That made me think of somebody. Actually, 2 people came to mind. They've both been on this show multiple times. One of them's Amy Hood. If you don't know her, she is a Monster Jam driver now, but she's done motocross for years. But her lifestyle is high energy, like crazy activities, always traveling, like just wild. And if you talk to her, if you aren't energized, there's something really, really wrong with you. Because that's who she is. Like, if you're looking at her social media, initially you don't know her, maybe. I feel the authenticity, but if you're looking at it, you might think, oh, what is this, an act? And then afterwards, after she gets off camera, she's exhausted. No, this girl does not get tired. Right.
That's funny.
And that's just how she is. She's intense and she's in your face, and it works. And that's who she is, and that's what her brands want. She works with Rockstar Energy. why would you not want to partner with
There you go,
someone
right?
like Amy
Yeah.
Hood if you're Rockstar Energy? And then another person I thought of, 4x4 Barbie, Pleasant Cook is her real name, but she lives this, like, she's very witty and goofy, but she's all over the place, and she's really into off-road type activities. But one of the things that I think is really great about her, from the authenticity standpoint, she does truck builds, but they're show trucks. They are not intended to go out mudding and whatnot, and people rag on her all the time for that. But she puts up. There's one specific post that I thought was great. She put just a little bit of mud on one of her tires and said, like, "What do you mean I don't go mudding? Look at this thing, it's a mess." I was like, you know what? That's good, right? Because that is her community. Yeah. Like, that's who she is. Yep. Yeah, she drives mini monster trucks, and she races. She does desert races. She does all that stuff. She's like, no, this is my show truck. I don't get it dirty. Why would I do that?
Which really leads you into the step 2, right? So you have this lifestyle content. You live this lifestyle. Now you have to understand and know your audience, right? You cannot market yourself to an audience that isn't what you're marketing, right?
Right.
So that's where a lot of people start to go bad, right? They try it's cool that if you happen to be in an industry of 100, then guess what? You just have a smaller audience. It's okay.
Right.
Just market to your audience.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And that's what sponsors are looking for too, right? They're saying, okay, what audience has this racer or, whoever, what audience have they captured? And is that the audience that I now want to capture? That's part of this thing. And if you can't showcase who that audience is or that you can engage them, it's just less likely that you're going to be able to, to get that out there. So I'll give an example real quick. SolderWeld, I've been working with SolderWeld we're going on 2 years now, and I met them out at Vegas to Reno, which is an off-road desert race that they run every year. And, when I met them, they started talking to me about what they were going after. They're like, we want to get access to the racers that are, like, very conscious of growing themselves, growing their partners. We want to get associated with these people. Like, that's who we want our brand to line up with. And I was like, oh, great. Those are the people that listen to my show. Because you're not going to be downloading this show and listening to it unless you have some means of self-development in your head. Like, you have some goal there. And they were like, that's who we want. Like, we want to talk to those people. I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. So, but if someone said to me, hey, look, we want the party houses, we want to get access to, like, the crazy people, it's not the show. Like, people on the show do some wild stuff, but, like, they're almost always business conscious or, again, focused on personal development. They're not the ones that are out getting crazy and doing wild partying stuff. So, like, I'm not going to be able to sell stuff like that.
So, like, it takes, I'll put it in the context of fighting, right? It takes many, many years of foundation building before you become a great freestyle fighter, right? So it's the same thing in this. It takes many years of understanding who you are, the message that you're trying to get out there, and who you're trying to get out there to make it look like you're not doing anything. It's a lot of work to make it look like you're not doing anything. It's when it comes to creating content, anyways. So you really have to have these foundational skills when it comes to creating that content. You may represent, or there may be elements of what you represent that are wild and crazy and all this other stuff. But and there is in the Jeep world too. There's you go out to, like, one of the craziest events is Terra del Sol out down in Southern California out here. Every year they have this event, and it is chaos at night. And it's a bunch of people that have probably drank way too much alcohol, driving vehicles that they can really, really kill themselves or other people in all over the desert. It's crazy. I personally hate all of that stuff,
Yeah.
right? I don't like to participate in it. I don't like, but they are in the element of what I do. So,
Right.
They exist, they're probably not the diehard followers that would like to read what I write or do the video content thing, but they're in the industry, and you have to have a balance of kind of not turning off anybody in the industry, but also know your niche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like that.
It's a random thought. I don't know if it has anything to do with what we were just talking about.
Oh, it
definitely
does.
is a random thought.
You got me hooked. You got me hooked. You already kind of got into this a little bit, but I just want to kind of hammer this point home. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, how does your channel help promote your partners and your own brand? So you kind of hinted at that, like, you live the whole lifestyle, but and then also you don't sell anything, right? Everything is authentic. But is there anything else?
Yep.
Like, how else does your channel really help with, your sponsors, your partners, and your own brand?
So if a good storyteller engages, people engage with them, right? And really what these brands want, they want the engagement. Mm-hmm. That's really what it boils down to. So I kind of consider myself, what I do with my sponsors is I help build brand awareness, I help build product awareness, and I help build brand loyalty. And the way I do that is because I believe in it and I'm loyal to it. And that authenticity is what people buy into, right? Mm-hmm. So by living a lifestyle, telling a story that's attractive and engaging, people engage. And at the end of the day, that's what matters to sponsors. They want a specific. Thank God we're over the days of sponsors saying, "Oh, this guy's got 400,000 followers on Instagram.
Right.
We're going to give him some money to do this." Right now, at least we know that 5,000 good, same like-minded, same demographic people are way more important than 100,000 of sporadic people all over the place. Mm-hmm. So you cut out an audience that is representation of who you are and what you do, and you give your sponsors access to that audience through your content.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does.
If I were to try to sell somebody something, it's not going to go good because I'm not a salesman. I don't want to be a salesman. What I want to do is I want to show you the cool stuff that I do. I want to show you the cool stuff that I have from these guys that I believe in. And if you like them, cool. Yeah. I like them so much. And if they weren't good, I wouldn't like them to begin with. I wouldn't be showing you them. So the sell is easy once you have the engagement.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. And I'm glad you brought up the difference between 400,000 followers of a bunch of random people versus, 1,000 followers of someone who's really, dedicated and engaged. When I first started doing the show, 2.25 years ago, I don't know, there was, I guess I had my own perception of that exact thing of like, no, you just got to have 1 million followers and you're fine. And then I started like really diving into some of the metrics around, say it's social media, where you can see if someone has, like I've seen accounts with 50% engagement. They post something, half their followers engage. Right. I'm like, holy cow. Yeah. Then other accounts, less than 1%, right? Probably the average out there is less than 1%. You see someone with 50, I mean, even 10% is like, that's a big deal, right? And I'm like, I want that. So back in the day, I don't know if I would have paid as much attention to that. I said, oh, well, this person's got 100,000 followers, and they got 200 likes. Like, wow, 200 likes, that's pretty cool. But then I'm like, oh, this person has 400 followers and 200 likes. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So, there's another element to the engagement factor that. So I have my website. My website does probably, on average, 100,000 hits a month, right? From there, I have my social media outlets. My social media outlets are simply there to engage and to push out content, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't make the mistake of thinking that your Facebook page is your website, or your
Right.
Twitter page or account is your website, or your Instagram is your website. That's probably the easiest one to do, the Instagram, right? Because that's what everyone's into right now. But, I don't have a ton of followers on any of my social. Facebook, I barely go on. I had a channel. I had a Venture the Wild page on Facebook. I don't know. It was probably a year ago, and maybe 2 years ago. And, I had not a ton, but, 12, 15,000 people on there. And I just closed the page because I got mad at Zuckerberg one time because I hate Facebook so bad. Right. So obviously, when you're irrational as I am, you can't rely on social media to be the only source of reaching out to people. So I believe the boots on the ground approach is probably my most effective.
Yeah.
I go to Jeep meets. I hang out with clubs and with just 4 or 5 Jeepers at a time doing something fun. I go to events and stuff like that, and that really is that's your boots on the ground engagement right there. That's what people did before social media, right?
Right.
So that's your number one way, is to build real relationships with people, to have real conversations, and to hang out with real people. That's your most important thing that you can do. From there, you can start pushing out on social media and that kind of thing. But don't forget that you have to have real people in your life.
And, a couple points you made there, I try to hammer these home whenever I have the opportunity. The website, something where you have control of the content is pretty critical. Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, they own it all.
They own it all, and they can change on a dime.
Yep.
And there's nothing that's stopping them. There's nothing that's stopping them from actually saying we're no longer going to be a social media site either. So
right.
I think it's critical to have control over your own content. And racers, this comes down to if you have, your race reports that you want to post up, if you have, your performance that you've done over time, if you could have that on a one-page website and it's yours for as long as you want it to be. But I actually did, so I wanted to hammer that home. I think it's really critical to have your own website. That's actually, I've shared this plenty of times before. My first ever sponsor, TopThePodium.com, they came on in episode 6, and I'm on 149, I think, when this releases. And they do websites on top of other things, but they did my website. I can't enforce it enough. Get the website, whether you use Top the Podium or somebody else, get it. That's why I keep hammering it home. You hear it at every single episode, some commercial about it. But either way, I'll move on from my rant. But get a website.
No, everybody actually should. Whether you are doing anything or not, having that website is your place. That's your house on the internet. That's so everybody should have a domain name where they can, control their content, image, anything through digitally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you on that. Everybody should have
another
website.
spot for eyeballs too.
Yeah.
I include my website hits in all of my metrics and my dashboard that I share with my sponsors every month. So it's just one other element too to add to your whole program. But that's one thing. And then I also got a little bit obsessed about this topic recently because I read an article from Zuckerberg talking about the future of Facebook and essentially that at one point it might not even be a social media site anymore. It might just be based off of Messenger.
I don't even think it's that now.
It's barely. I mean, it's rough right now. But I wrote this. Not wrote it. I did a show on social media apocalypse. What would happen if social media just was done? And it goes back to boots on the ground. We'll still do it. I think people right now are upset with social media. They're looking for something different. There's a backlash. There's definitely one with Facebook. I hear it on the show a lot. I do Facebook Live shows, and they changed their definition of what a view is, and they've changed how they push the content out. And I used to be able to throw up a live show in the past and get a couple thousand views in a heartbeat, and now Like, it's just not there. And in my content, I would like to believe that it's just gotten better, but I don't know. There's just people are angry with Facebook, so that's why I made that.
Yeah, Facebook's the
that
worst,
post.
right?
Yeah.
Facebook's the worst. I'm not a fan at all. I have it because out of necessity at this point.
Yeah.
But because I also do some stuff with I have a charity that I do a lot of stuff with, and so I need that as well for that. But like I said, I had 15,000. I didn't announce it. I just was like, you know what? I am so disgusted. I'm out of here. And now it's reopened, and it's probably got 500 on there. But
no, it's crazy stuff. Well, hey, I feel like we could do this for hours and hours and hours, and maybe you can come back on the show in the future. But I am gonna start wrapping things up, so we're gonna skip a few of the things that I want to cover. Actually, I don't even know if we're really skipping anything. People don't know this, but I create outlines before every show, and if I actually follow the outline, it's a shock. But we get the stuff that I think people need to hear. That's the important part. But I kind of want to wrap things up, and the way I wrap these shows up at the finish line is just ask, if there's one thing that our listeners need to take away from this conversation, what would that one thing be?
So honestly, the one thing, if you were to ask me what's the one thing I'd want somebody to walk away with, it'd be not even sponsor relative, right? It would be more like, hey, find your purpose and run with that. But when it comes to, in regards of the context of this as a business and all that stuff, I would say the most important thing that you can do is, well, a few things. One, be authentic, know your audience, and don't get greedy. That'd be probably, if you're to throw some generic tips out there, there's a lot to be said when I say know your audience. There's a million things that comes with that. When I say, there's a million things that come with everything, but know your audience, know your purpose, and don't get greedy.
Yeah, I'll just quickly elaborate on the don't get greedy part. If you look back in your life, this is for anybody listening here, and you see a point where you felt like maybe you were getting a little greedy, just ask yourself if you made a good decision at that point. Just ask yourself if it felt right later. I know I can think of examples, and I'm like, got a little greedy, didn't necessarily work out the way I wanted it to be, right? I messed up something, or I made somebody feel uncomfortable, or I don't know.
That's funny. We have all these things in life that we all know that. Think about the last time you gave somebody a gift and how good that felt. And think about the last time you received a gift and how good that felt. We all know that giving is better than getting. But when it comes, we just can't help ourselves sometimes, So stick to the basics. Keep it simple. Don't get greedy.
Definitely.
That'll get you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
Well, the website's VentureTheWild.com. Obviously, check out content there. But if you want to actually interact with me, my favorite way is Instagram. I just, you can go through, you look at great pictures of anything that you want to look at without all the complaining that comes along on Facebook.
Yeah.
So my Instagram tag is VTW, like Venture the Wild, V as in Victor, TW Explore. So just find me on Instagram, VTW Explore. Reach out to me there. I'm down to have a conversation with anybody. If anybody also is just kind of wants my opinion on something, I am an open book. I'm totally cool with talking to whoever wants to hear it. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
So reach out. That'd be great.
And I can validate that there's truth behind it because that's how you and I end up connecting. I think so. I've got a couple of Instagram profiles. But yeah, I have one that's just for my Jeep now, and that's how you and I ended up connecting, was on that profile, not necessarily the podcast one. I'm pretty sure. Sometimes I get confused because there's a lot going on there, but like, I love the experience on Instagram sometimes, because especially the way I have it set up now. So I've got my podcast one, which is like, I'm all business when I'm on the podcast. on that Instagram. And then I've got my own personal one, which I just kind of do whatever I want to do on that, and I'm not worried about it. And then I got my Jeep one where I just like geek out on Jeep stuff. Everybody I follow is some sort of Jeeper or Overlander. I let a few Toyota Tacomas and a few Chevy ZR2s in there as well. So don't I'm not hating on everybody else. I got a soft spot in my heart for those too. But
Yep. There's
I just geek out on it.
You can't hate on Defender.
Yeah,
you know, like an old Land Rover Defender.
Right.
Those things are the best.
They are
But,
awesome.
Yeah.
But
if anybody ever wants to talk Jeep and any of that, you could definitely reach out to me there too. I'm more than happy to share my opinion on anything. And I am a guy that I live this stuff. So,
definitely.
If you see my Jeep, it's a one of a kinder. Definitely.
That was actually I was going to bring up. So, Brad Kowitz, he did a little show with you as well. So if you go on Trail Recon, there's a show where I think you did a deep dive review with your Jeep, and it's legit. It's not just a regular Jeep. You've done so much to it. It's a truck conversion, right? Overland.
Yeah, it's cool.
Amazing. So if anybody is interested, I would highly recommend going and check out that episode. You've got pictures of it all over the place too, on your website, on social media. Yeah. But I just thought Brad did a good job, getting into all of the
he's good at what he
details.
does. He's good at what he does for sure.
Brad is phenomenal.
And super nice guy.
Super nice.
Nice guy.
And I will just tell you this. I actually should tell this to Brad too. I think that I've watched enough of his shows now where I've developed some of the similar ways that he talks. He'll do those I don't even know how to describe it now. He'll the he does the longer these. I don't know. I've noticed myself at times. I don't think I did it during this show, but I've literally taken on some of the way that he talks, and
that's cool.
It's not a bad thing. I'm okay with that.
I'm getting ready to kick off my own YouTube channel here, which should be pretty fun. And it's going to be more about the adventures. Yeah. So it'll be a show. There's a couple of videos. You could actually YouTube Venture the Wild, and you'll find it on there. Up to this point, what I've used it for is if I create a video for a post or something, I'll usually throw it up on YouTube just so I could take the feed, because why do all the back end work when Google did it all? So I could just grab it off of YouTube and post it. But there's a cool video in there about I took a friend of mine. We went to San Antonio. I'm sorry, I know you're trying to wrap up, but this is a good story if you want to hear it.
You're good.
Okay. So this guy, his name's Robert. He's a friend of mine, and we went to San Antonio, Texas. And there's this place. I forget the name of the place. It's in the video. But they do this giant 21-pound chicken fried steak challenge. So they have this giant piece of chicken fried steak topped with gravy, and there's 3 sides: corn, biscuit, whatever the sides you get to pick from. And you have I think you have 21 minutes to eat it, and it's free. Right? So we went down there, and I just kind of shot it, and this guy tried to do it. He failed miserably, but it was a good time. It's a cool little video. Check it out.
That's awesome.
But my YouTube channel will be launching pretty quick here.
Very cool.
It'll be all, like I said, adventure based kind of thing. So that's the gig. I'm going to try to. I got a couple ideas for some little YouTube series shows, and we'll get them up there. It'll be fun.
Good deal, man. Well, hey, I'm excited to have this conversation. I thought it was phenomenal. I actually think I just started doing the Brad Kowitz talk there. I had a little bit of it there. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. You hit on, like I said, a lot of my heartstrings there. I think in the future, if we could do this again, we could spend another couple hours going through it. But we got to kind of close things out now. So I am going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Make sure that you subscribe, that way you don't miss any of our upcoming shows. And follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then pay specific attention to our Facebook page. That's where we do our live shows to get insider access into upcoming guests, and also ask questions and just learn best practices from the group of listeners that are out there. You can check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. A special thanks goes out to our partners: AMSOIL, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. And I also want to shout out our other partners, GSP XTV, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and High Octane Coffee. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.